Okay. Okay, everybody. Welcome to our first Join the Conversation, where we're going to be talking about voting. Just to give you some intros, we just heard Dr. Sean Foreman. He's on here. He's going to be our expert today and tell us a little bit about how to get registered to vote and that kind of stuff. And then Katie and I are taking over as kind of the moderators in terms of the dialogue and all that. So we're going to start with a inspirational video. Oh, wait. I don't think I shared my audio. Hang on a sec. Start over. There we go.
This is where you rise, this is where you shine, this is where you become the greatest of all time. History in the making. This is history in the making. History in the making.
Vote for your life.
All right, so hopefully that inspired you, got you motivated. We're going to talk about voting. Before we do, just I know most of you guys know this by now, but Bucks is a group that we've put together over the summer, really focusing on social justice issues for our student athletes. And what that stands for, oops, sorry, the chat just popped up. Building unity, community, and solidarity. All right, so again, social justice issues. And this year we're really gonna be focusing on race issues. So we'll be hosting some events throughout the year, and we'll talk about those at the end. Like I said, who's going to be talking today? We've got me, obviously I'm an assistant professor in the sports psych program. We've got Katie, one of our GAs, who is going to also be talking and helping with discussion. And then we have our special guest, Dr. Sean Foreman. He's a professor in the political science and also the chair of the history and political science department. We're also hoping he'll tell us a little bit about the Campus Democracy Project that he also heads up here. So we're starting off with how do I register to vote? So Dr. Foreman, do you want to talk to us a little bit about this?
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much for inviting me today. I'm really excited to see this initiative out of your school and to see the students being interested in these activities and the faculty and staff helping to guide the conversation. And we know that this is one piece in continuing conversations. So the first step is it is actually pretty easy to register to vote, regardless what people might say. It is fairly simple. And in Florida, one thing they've done pretty well is make it very simple with a one-stop shop. And so you have the link there. I think if you would go ahead and click on it, Suzanne. So one thing to look at is registering to vote. There's the deadline, and it's October 5th in the state of Florida to vote in the November 3rd election. Other states do have deadlines that are a little bit different dates around there. If you're already registered to vote, you have your voter registration card, that's great. Just make sure that your address is current with where you're residing now and that your signature on your card or matches the way that you do sign your documents now, because that's what's actually the signature on file with the state is the one from your driver's license, and they're going to match it up and see how well, make sure it's the right person. But again, it's really simple. You can either go to your county division of elections, because in all the in Florida, we have 67 counties, and each county has its own supervisor of elections. Or you can just go to this site that we've put there that's from the Florida Division of Elections and register or update. So if you're a first-time voter You click in there, you put your name, birth date, and address, and it'll generate the form that you e-sign, and then they'll send you in the mail your new voter registration card. If you're already registered and you need to adjust something, I did this in the past. I clicked on that, I made an adjustment, and I got a new card in the mail in 5 days. Now, this was a year ago. Right now, they're probably very busy. But I also recommended to a professor who just moved here from Georgia this semester, and he went and did it, and it was very simple, and he got his card within a week as well. So should be very simple to register to vote in the state of Florida or update your information. If you are in another state right now, because we have remote teaching and learning, or if you're from another state and you come to school in Florida, you're from New York or Illinois or any other state, you could possibly vote in your home state as opposed to Florida. And so on that, you sort of have to decide what you're more comfortable with. And then we would go to the other link for non-Florida residents. So this is from a national organization called Campus Vote Project. And we have a partnership with them through our Campus Democracy Project to share resources. And so, you know, if you click on the state of Florida here, it's going to take you to an info page and sort of general info that has for everybody. Again, there's our deadline we're looking at right now is October 5th. You can register or update at any time, any year, but to be on the rolls for November 3rd, you have to register by October 5th. And then I think that second link is the same link we were just looking at.
Yeah.
So again, I think Florida's made it pretty easy for us to do the registration. If you want to go back, then if you're from another state, back again, and maybe we could look at New York or whatever one you want.
I'm from Indiana, so let's choose Indiana.
All right. Go Hoosiers. And so that you can see that they've set up the information similarly for every state so that you can find it. And their deadline's also October 5th. I think that's the most common date, which is 29 days before the election. And same thing, you can click there, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's as simple, Indiana voters, or not, but probably. I had a clip from our, and I'll take questions and comments at any time. I had a clip from one of our graduates, Dominique McMillan, who now works with the All-In Democracy Challenge. I wonder could I share my screen and see if we could just show her
Yeah.
answering a question about which state you might want to register to vote? Okay, let's see if we can do this, since we're so high-tech these days. Oh, well, what would I pick? I guess I'd have to pick which screen it is. And I have so many open. Let me get to the right one. Here it is. Okay, so now can I share that? Yes. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
And let's see if we can hear her.
Oh, we can't hear it.
Okay. Wonder what do I need to do for that?
So whenever you hit share, there's the box that comes up that tells you which screen. There's
Yeah.
also a little button in the left corner that says share computer audio that you have to check.
There it is. Thank you.
Mhm.
What I've been taught is that folks should register where they feel comfortable or feel they have a stake in the voting process. A lot of times, maybe the first or second year students will feel more comfortable registering to vote and voting at home versus some of your third and fourth year students who may or may not really have gotten immersed in the community and culture of where they are. I will say that I got to vote my junior year, but in that time I was also volunteering with or spending time with organizations in North Miami and Miami Shores and the greater Miami area. So I felt like I was seeing things and I'm like, I need to take what I'm seeing and vote for people who I believe will be best suited to make some sort of change in the community that's necessary. But that may not be the case for everyone. And another thing I learned is that it could also be contingent upon people's financial aid. That's something people also should take into consideration when they decide to change where they vote, because then you're starting to stake claim in residency in the state with which your school is.
I'm sorry. I was reacting to my reaction from when she said it. Okay, so I think we're back on the regular screen. We can see each other. So again, Dominique was from Massachusetts, came to Barry, graduated in 2018. Now she lives in Maryland and works on these efforts nationally. So I usually tell people that your vote might matter more in Florida for a lot of reasons. We already know it's going to be close and swing state, as opposed to New York or Massachusetts, which most likely are going to go for the Democratic candidate anyway. So, you know, I think that's one consideration. The other one is, and I think Dominique was right on, is where you feel comfortable. So, you know, if you've already registered in a home state, you can order a ballot from there, then you should do that. But if we can get you registered at Barry and vote here, then that's probably better. Katie?
Yeah, Dr. Foreman, because you reacted, I missed the second part of what she had said. Can you just reiterate what it was about the student financial aid?
That a student has to be careful of where they vote, because that's a claim of residency, even if part-time residency. So if, you just have to be careful that might not, it doesn't interfere with your financial aid. If you say, I live in Florida, but yet your residency is somewhere else. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? Okay, so if we can move on, it's easy to register to vote, I think. Any questions about registering?
I have one other question. If you think you registered because you got a driver's license, but you're not sure, is there a way just to check if you're registered?
Super question. Yes, we'd have to find that link, but there are several of them. Am I registered to vote? And in fact, I think the Florida one, you start with that. You enter your information and it tells you what your status is right now. Because when you go to get your driver's license or renew it under the National Motor Voter Law of 1993, you have the opportunity to register. It doesn't happen automatically, but it's placed in front of you, my understanding is, and you can do it. So it's not automatic. Yeah, there we go. In Florida, it's easy to check your status.
So that link that was just dropped into the chat, is that the link that we should be checking if we do have a driver's license in Florida?
So.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, maybe we can move to the next slide. If there's nothing else on registering to vote itself, then the next thing is getting ready to vote. Mm-hmm. And informing and educating yourself about the candidates and all that, which I see you guys want to talk about a little bit and is vitally important. But again, then the next step is to actually go and exercise your vote. As you have perfectly laid out here, there are options. In Florida, we do have 3 options. You can get a ballot at home, whether it's called mail-in or absentee ballot, it's the same thing. And in Florida, they started 2004. You don't need an excuse or reason. You used to have to say, I'm going to miss voting because of work or travel, being in the hospital. Now you can get a ballot for any reason, sent to your home, fill it out, take your time, and send it back in the mail. Secondly, you could fill it out at home. And in Florida, they have set up drop boxes. I haven't myself seen one, but I've heard about them out there. They look like a mailbox. And you can drop your ballot in there and they'll pick them up at the end of the day and collect them. Or you can drop your ballot, if you want to go all out, at the elections department. And it's actually kind of easy to do that in Doral. They have a drive-through spot if you want to drive to Doral. Or on election day, you could go there and drop off your ballot at a precinct. And I tell you these things because you probably see in the news and hear the stories of the horror. If you try to mail it, it may not get there. And then there was a specific example that was in the news last week about someone from Miami Beach who was in North Carolina over the summer and sent their ballot to Florida, and it actually got kicked back, returned to sender last week, 7 weeks after the election. So, you know, there are cases of that. There are, and there are ballots that may go missing or so on. So I would just really encourage you, if you vote by mail or absentee, to maybe try to drop it off at the drop box. There is another site that we could find that actually allows you to track your ballot, and you know where it is in the post office to when it's been received by your elections department. Again, we criticize Florida for a lot of things, and rightly so, with some of the counting of the vote, but some of these systems are well in place because we've had to deal with problems over the last 20 years. You know, that we're a little bit better prepared, I think, in Florida for all the mail-in ballots that they'll have elsewhere. But in case you're worried, you could drop it off, or you can vote early. Again, in Florida, we have this option like 10 days before, where they have some places open. The closest places to Barry is the North Miami Library, also the library in Miami Gardens. You can go early anytime you want, 2 weeks before the election, or you can wait till election day, like good old-fashioned Professor Foreman does, and vote. And I'm still going to do that. I did actually in March and in August with COVID going on. I'm aware of the risks to everyone, but it's a little elementary school right by my house. I go in, there's no line, no waiting. So I'm going to do that as well. So you have options.
Yeah, I also voted in person in March, and I was the only person there because I was right when COVID was kicking off and things were closing down. And I was like, well, I'm still going to go. And I went, and I was literally the only person. So it was very safe.
Yes, they had hand sanitizer and all that.
Dr. Foreman, question for you. You're in a different, so if you are a student at Barry, but if you're in another state, can you go on that link that Dr. Ludwig had shared and provide an address that's in a different state to forward your ballot to, or no?
Are you currently registered to vote?
Yeah, in Florida.
In Florida, but you're not in Florida right now? Is that
Exactly
okay?
right.
Correct. So yes, you can use that site. That's right. If you were registered in another state, then you have to go to that state site.
But you're allowed to have it forwarded to another state, and that's okay. Like you said, the North Carolina person. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Perfect.
Yes. Because, you know, I'm sorry, Kathy, originally absentee ballots were used for like military and people who were living overseas, and they sent it to you for those reasons. Dr. Ludwig.
Yeah, I'm signed up to be a poll watcher on November 3rd. Isn't that exciting? I get to sit around and watch everybody vote, and you know, working for the Florida Democratic Party to watch, be a poll watcher, and just make sure everyone has the access that they're supposed to get. But everyone's looking for volunteers to work at polling stations, either be a poll watcher or work. If you want to work, you can actually get paid for that day. And forgive me if I'm stealing thunder from anything that's coming later. So I was just
I didn't even think about that.
I can forward that to you as well. We were passing those around some of our students last week for Palm Beach, Broward County, and Miami-Dade County. The links to go to sign up to be a poll worker. You have to do a training, but it is paid. You have to work, you have to commit to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. election day.
And then, you know, if you want to be a poll watcher, there's virtual training, and basically they'd like you to have somewhat of a brain and be able to figure things out and troubleshoot. And I'm like, oh, I do that every day. Anyway, so, all right. Back to you, Sean, sorry.
No, that's fine. So, again, different states have different rules. We're sort of Florida focused here, but if there's someone's going to vote in another state, we can look at that. The ballot has to be received by the elections department, as you see there, by election day, which might sound like common sense, but there are some states that they will receive a ballot that was postmarked on election day and comes in maybe even 5 days after. And that's going to be a problem, I think, getting all the vote count. But you have to have it in the hands of the elections department by the time the polls close on November 3rd. Next.
So Dr. Foreman,
Yes.
Is it with so many people doing mail-in voting this year, I imagine we're not going to know the winner of the election on November 3rd, right? Will it take a few days to announce a winner?
This is the big question.
Okay.
Big question. And, in all seriousness, that's a big question. And frankly, we now have the president, discounting the process and saying we don't even need to worry about counting the ballots. Don't worry, I'll stay there. So I think we're setting ourselves up for a lot of confusion. I can see both scenarios, but I'm a little bit hopeful that we'll have both scenarios of one, we'll know a winner relatively soon, or two, we won't know a winner for weeks. Like we went 36 days after the election in the year 2000 before we had the definitive winner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping there's enough of a edge one way or another that they can figure it out that night or the next day. Again, Florida, we have lots of history of problems, but I think Florida is going to be one of the earlier states to get their results in. I'm more worried for my old home state of Pennsylvania, and then Michigan and Wisconsin, which are going to be so critical to the outcome. They're not ready to deal with all the mail-in ballots like we are in Florida. And in fact, there's a whole court case over Pennsylvania now that could be problematic. So the long story short is it's possible we know the next morning, or it's possible we're waiting several weeks for an outcome.
So I just have a quick question. Not being from America, I've heard a lot of different things about the voting system and in-person voting. So can you explain to me how the stations are set up for in-person voting in different neighborhoods and stuff like that?
Okay. So if you go in person, you get a little booth. If we could maybe find a picture. It's an open-aired booth. So you stand at a desk with a divider to give you somewhat privacy. And this is actually different all across the United States, what the booth looks like. Sometimes there's a curtain behind you, so you really have more privacy. But in Miami-Dade County, you stand at a little desk, podium, with a privacy thing. You fill it out with a pen, bubble it in. See, this guy's so committed, he even interrupted his workout to come. Put a pause on his workout to be here. And then you take your pieces of paper, because it's actually several pieces of paper, the ballot. I think it was 10 or 11 pages in 2016, because there are a lot of things to vote on. And in Miami-Dade County, they print all of the ballots in, hey, there we go. And there it is, in English, Spanish, and Creole. And then, so anyway, you stand at a thing like that, and then you take your ballot and you stick it in a machine feeder that eats it and counts the vote. Registers that a vote is there. I hope that makes sense. So these are great pictures of different types of voting booths.
So these stations, they are set up in different parts of the community. So basically, what I really kind of want to get at is that I've heard a lot of different things from more so my Black friends about, especially one from America, about it being somewhat of a struggle to kind of get to these stations. So I'm trying to get more of an understanding of kind of not how to answer that question, but just to kind of understand where they're coming from a little bit and with the struggles that they have in terms of in-person voting, and just to kind of get a grasp of like where the stations are set up, why some people have a harder time than others, so on and so forth.
That is a big and profound question, that part of this process. And I mean that in all seriousness. And it differs actually a lot from different counties and different states. But let me just say that generally they put a voting precinct in within a reasonable distance to every neighborhood. They're usually in elementary schools, fire stations, maybe churches, sometimes in college campuses, sometimes not. It's gone back and forth. At Barry, our polling precinct is Sibley Elementary School, which is back in the back corner or front corner, right, of adjacent to Barry. So everyone's usually assigned something right by their house. Kyle, to your question, the problem is they play some games in some places, and they'll change it. You voted at this school this time, they'll change you to a different location next time, and they might not properly inform you. I'm speaking in generalities here, but it happens, and it maybe is part of an effort to try to keep some people from voting. This very much happens, because making the rules of the game give you an advantage in the game. So this is the problem. Is a lot of people thought, I'll go here to vote, and they got there, and they were told, no, you don't vote here anymore. You have to go over there. And you might not have time to go over there, or you might go there and they say, no, you're not there. So there are all kinds of documented cases of these things that have happened in recent times.
And Kyle, I wanted to add something to that. So one of the new, born and raised in New York, voting there, and then eventually got to South Carolina where I vote here, and rural communities and access to transportation. So a lot of the things that we talk about and some issues that might present our low SES population is there might be a polling station, but there's no real good transportation in middle of nowhere, rural South Carolina, right? So how do they go ahead and get there if they don't have their own vehicle? Or 7 to 7 seems like a big time slot, but a lot of people are shift workers or work strange hours, or maybe they work multiple jobs. And so I think a lot of the frustration that we see in the low SES population is just their ability, because they might be working multiple jobs, or they don't have a vehicle, or they don't even have the money to take a bus or a subway. Now compound all of those issues with COVID and public transportation. Maybe they don't feel safe going on public transportation, right? So there's just so many issues at play that can kind of make these issues just 10 times harder for people to deal with and kind of work through. And while yes, you can send in a mail-in ballot and there's other options, but those are also options that you need to be thinking, a month or two ahead. And let's be honest, who thinks that far ahead? I remember the first year that I moved to Florida, I forgot to switch over my voter registration. And the next thing I knew, I didn't get my absentee ballot in. And I was so upset with myself. And I was like, man, how did I miss that, right? So I think that there's just a whole bunch of different stuff at play, but you're absolutely correct. I mean, it's a persistent issue that we've had, as a country, and lots of different things that kind of cause that.
Yeah, this would go under the category of systemic disenfranchisement. There are ways to create rules or systemic barriers to voting, even though you say, hey, you're eligible to vote, go ahead, register to vote. But as we see, it's not so easy to get there.
Before you get to the next slide, I'm sorry, I just want to tell everybody something. In the 2016 election, it wasn't advertised very well, but Lyft and Uber offered like either free or heavily discounted rides to the polling places. Obviously, some people can't afford anything to get them, any kind of fare to get to and from the polling stations. But I don't know if they're going to do it this year, but hopefully they will. And if they do, that's something we should spread around and tell people.
That is a great point. I was going to add on that getting rides to the polls is an important function that the political parties play or some other nonprofit organizations. And you're right. I remember seeing something about Uber and Lyft last time as well. Yes. What other questions or why is it important? You tell me. Important for everybody, regardless of age, SES, religion, race, gender. It's important.
So I would love to know what your response is, Dr. Foreman, when you hear people say like, my vote doesn't matter. So for example, like I live in a state that's notoriously a red state, right? So my vote doesn't matter. Or I live in a state that I know the Democratic candidate's going to win. So what do you say when people say my vote doesn't matter? What's your like elevator pitch?
Yeah, there are a couple of things to that. One is you can actually agree with them, to be honest. There is, in political science, rational choice theory shows it is not rational to vote. The cost-benefit analysis of your one counting versus, I'm not going to go there, as some colleagues do. I would usually point to you're voting in a presidential election, but there are also local elections at that time. And in the local elections, one vote can make a difference. And we have different examples, even to just in Miami Shores, our village of Miami Shores last election, there was literally a tie vote between two candidates for commission. And they had to do a recount and then ended up actually in a re-vote, a second round, a runoff vote. So here and there you get ties. And, one vote could have made the difference in the Miami Shores City Village Council race. Also, in the year 2000 in Florida, which went to the Supreme Court to decide the count, it was 524 votes of those that were properly cast and counted was the difference between George W. Bush and Al Gore. 525 votes. So, if you hit a couple more neighborhoods, you swing a form. So your vote is one of many. If you don't cast it, it doesn't count at all. But if you do it in conjunction with your friends and allies, it's going to make a difference. And further, voting's not the only way. You can do other things. You can attend, protest rallies, demonstrations. You can write to your Congress people, write op-eds, convince your friends in swing states to vote.
Thank you. Love that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think one of the things I always think about too is that we hear so much about the presidential election, right? And we know that the president has a lot of power, but right now with some of the race issues going on, right? If you're, out here protesting and thinking, defund the police or make changes to policing, that really comes from your local officials. So making sure you're voting not just every 4 years for president, but in every election, because those people, your mayor or city council or whoever is kind of in charge of your city and your town, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was pushing that a lot more leading up to the primaries in August. I heard President Obama, former President Obama, say it earlier this year, so many others. Look, if you really want to make the change, you need to think about voting for state attorney and mayor. And we had a big competitive state attorney's race in Miami-Dade County this year, but the incumbent won. They had one in Broward County as well. We're having a runoff for mayor. We're picking a new mayor in Miami-Dade County. In fact, next Thursday night, I'm going to moderate a debate between them, Daniela Levine Cava and Esteban Bovo. But I think we need to tell people as well, is that that's right. If you really want to see change, you really want to see reforms, you really want to see justice carried out more properly at the local level, then you need to pay more attention to those local officials.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully everybody here is convinced to vote, and if you're not registered, to get registered. We've got a couple other things that we wanted to talk about. How do you know who's going to be on your ballot? How do you actually know what what are the things that you get to vote for this year. So when I register, I just updated my registration because I moved last month. And there was an option to select, send me a sample ballot. And so actually just last week I got an email, and this is just a screenshot, and it's much longer. There's more races and questions, but this is a sample of what my ballot will look like based on my address where I live. So obviously president is on there, but then there's also other things that I can vote for. So knowing ahead of time what my ballot's going to look like, who are the people running, is I think really important.
Absolutely. This is so cool that you have this. I haven't seen one yet, and you're registered near Barry since you have District 24.
Yeah,
as
yeah.
your seat.
I don't live too far from here, so. But there's this website. Katie and I were looking at this Ballotpedia where, let me share it. So I put in here just the address for Barry, Miami Shores, Florida. You can view your ballot right on here as well. See the upcoming election, November 3rd, and you can see what measures are going to be on it, as well as, you know, each of the races and who's running, who's going to be on the ballot for that. So that's a good tool as well, just to prepare yourself so that you're not going in, because I know certainly when I first started voting when I was 18, I might know a couple of the big races, and then the other ones I was like, I don't know, and I'll just fill in random names because I didn't know who any of them were. So making sure you're prepared to vote, I think, is really important too.
This is great. And to point out to people that below president and the ballot measures, which is a whole other thing, are those local races. And, you know, even that screenshot you have of the ballot was page 1, right? There are other pages.
Right.
Yeah, to make sure that people look through the whole ballot. There's this whole thing about some people just vote for president and leave the rest blank. We typically have an overvote. More people, even though they all voted, there's more votes in the presidential race for locals. I'm hearing, and I've heard that it's a thing more so on Black Twitter, because I'm trying to figure out what this is that maybe there's a talk this year, leave the top blank because they're not happy with the choices and vote further down. I would recommend that you vote for everything you have the opportunity to vote for.
Can I jump in and add some stuff?
Please.
You all, and if you don't know who these people are on the ballot and things, there's tons of resources around. You know, your Miami Herald or the Sun Sentinel, they will often do, and the TV channels around, am I getting ahead of myself? If you had this already?
No, keep going.
But there are places that will definitely endorse certain candidates, and they will tell you, you know, why they're endorsing. Oftentimes you might want to look for different groups that have similar ideals to you and find them. There's a gay and lesbian group in Broward County that is very politically active. So I go on there and I read what they say about endorsements. Also, there are, like, I know Sun Sentinel before the primaries had candidates go ahead and write things about themselves and what they believe. You know, judges and things, I mean, gosh, who knows? So I went on and looked at a couple of legal groups and things and got an idea about that. Usually, unfortunately, we only hear about judges if, you know, they've done something, you know, controversial or what. But, you know, look ahead, go a little bit past just the party. But, you know, please note certain things, and you know, do your research. And what I do is I get this ballot, right? I get a ballot like this and I look it over, and then I write down, you know, on a card who I'm going to vote for. and I go through. The last thing I want to tell you is read about the amendments very carefully, because often the way they name these amendments to the Constitution can be somewhat misleading. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Agreed.
they might say this is a, solar energy da 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 da, and you think, oh great, they want to get more solar, and then you find out, wait a minute, no, that's not exactly what they want. So, and there's all kinds of things in that, and Florida is sort of notorious for voting for lots of things on their amending the Constitution then that somehow never happen. That's a subject for another, Sean Foreman lecture, I'm sure. So anyway.
Yeah.
Can I just say the thing that Dr. Foreman just shared in the chat is so cool. Like I was
Yeah.
listening to you, Dr. Ludwig, I was, but I was also looking at this. It is so informative, and like this is like my biggest anxiety about trying to do research on candidates and on issues, because you never know what's being left out of whatever research you're reading. And so this is just so interesting because you can kind of pick or at least know, okay, well, if this falls in this certain category, it's less likely to be fair and balanced or whatever it might be. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Someone shared that with me about 2 years ago, and then I think they updated it this year. I think it's in version 4.0 or something. And, people can disagree with what they put there, but this is about as neutral of an observation of the sources we can get. So, and look, they're run by human beings. They have editorial teams, they have ad budgets and so on. At the end of the day, there's editorial discretion in all these sources. So you're better to look at several.
Yeah, and it is very, very good point to realize the implicit bias in many of these. And be careful, you all, about getting all your information from Facebook or Twitter. As Sean said, many of those things are not run by human beings. They're run by, artificial intelligence bots that are going to send you things to lead you along this merry path. So just be aware.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna just kind of move us along a little bit because I want to make sure we get time for everybody to ask any of their questions.
I knew you had this all covered, Suzanne.
No, thank you, Dr. Ludwig. So here are just, some of the ways to do research on candidates. Going to their websites, making sure you look at what is their stance on different things. Certainly if they're already in Congress, go to congress.gov and look at the way they voted on different bills, and if that matches up with your own values and what you want them to be voting for. View their campaign events, find their campaign office. This is going to be probably on their website. Call, ask questions, ask them how do they, what is their stance on different issues. And then check their answers as well, especially as debates are coming up here soon. Use fact check or use another reliable source to check what they're saying. Is that actually true? Because we know they like to not always be so truthful in their debates. Here are just some of the issues, again, that are going to be hot topics, again, in the debates, but for you guys as well, what's kind of going to be highlighted in this election. A couple more sources there for you. And then we wanted to do some discussion, but certainly please feel free to ask any questions you have. They don't have to just be these discussion questions. So we'll just open it up, and whatever you guys want to discuss or learn more about, feel free.
Yeah, I have a question, and this might come off kind of ignorant, but I don't understand why. I guess my question is in regards to recounts. If we have a limited number of ballots, why, when we recount, can we get dramatically different results? How do we mess up that badly in the first place? And then how can we trust the recounted vote if it's sometimes hundreds or thousands of different answers than what we originally found? I don't understand why there's such a large gap.
I don't think there is a large gap.
Is
though.
there not?
You know about, yeah. Unless you have an example. In Florida, because of the year 2000 debacle, then after that they passed a law. So any election that is 0.5% difference, 0.5% difference, automatically goes to a machine recount. And if it's 0.25% difference, it goes to a hand recount. And they did have recounts in 2018 over the Senate race and the agriculture commissioner race. And I don't have it in front of me, but it was just a handful of vote difference as far as I know. It didn't change any outcomes.
Okay, so it's not a very dramatic result change. It's just very minute specifics.
Correct. And where it could come down to is like one of these races that's truly tied, or a couple of votes difference. But how do we get different counts is because there's human error and there are computer errors. And so, that's why there need to be so many eyes on this process and transparency, that we get to know what's going on, and accountability. But yeah, there are errors in doing the vote counts sometimes. It's not very satisfying to know, but.
So, Dr. Foreman, I have a question, and this is a legitimate question of myself. If you feel like I'm talking about on a presidential election, right? If you feel like you just don't know enough, right? And like just when you think you've made a decision, you read something and you're like, oh, well, now I just don't know. And there's like a devil you know versus the devil you don't. And I think this isn't necessarily for me, but I think there's a lot of folks who would have like an analysis paralysis, where they're like, I'm just not going to vote because I don't want to necessarily contribute to the wrong decision because they don't have a clear-cut right decision. Does that situation make sense, what I'm saying?
It makes sense to me, because I end up in analysis paralysis sometimes over who to pick, which most people don't.
Right.
I think I'm a little odd in that I'm the advisor for both the college Democrats and the college Republicans, and I voted for both in my life. But most people are only going to be on one side or the other most of the time, and so that's a lot easier. So, and frankly, that's another reason why I wait until election day to vote, to see in case anything else comes out. But this takes it back to, being a voter takes some work. And that I'm glad you guys are having this conversation about voter research. Yeah, you have to look at the articles and cross-examine and fact check, and then come to your own decision. And again, if someone doesn't vote, that's okay too. Maybe it's better to not vote than to make an uninformed decision.
I think that's kind of where I was, getting at with that.
Mm-hmm. Because again, and I'm all about trying to encourage people to vote and bring about change in society. But I am serious also when the studies show it doesn't make sense. It's not rational, the cost of voting. But, the cost is pretty low, so it's worth it. There are voter guides out there, and some people have mentioned go to the newspapers. They do their picks and they tell you why. They have interviews with candidates if you really want to get into it. There are voter guides. There's this thing called CEEP, Campus Elections Engagement Project, CEEP. And they always do voter guides. They did one on the presidential election. I was going to pop this in the chat as well. Oh no, I think it closed. But There are also the amendments, which has been mentioned. Those, I think it's really important to get informed on and vote on the amendments, because that's a direct way that we, the Florida citizens, are shaping the state constitution and state laws. And they have some controversial ones on there. So people need to look into those. I'd like to hear what people say, especially like number 3 on those questions. And 4.
I mean, I can start off that. I know personally it infuriates me because I have a family who I'm the only person that votes, and it drives me nuts. Like, my older sister and her husband are these brilliant veterinarians. They're the most intelligent people I know, never voted in their lives. And so I just get so, I don't know why it bothers me so much, but it just drives the crap out of me. Like, why are you not voting? So I would love to know what other people say in those situations, because I certainly, you know, have my like spiel and my elevator pitch of like, this is why it's so important, but it doesn't seem like I've been very effective in changing their minds. So I'd love to know other people's thoughts.
I'm someone who still to this day, I mean, I'm going to vote, but like, I really don't think my vote matters. It really doesn't make sense for me to put all this effort into getting my absentee ballot just for Connecticut to go towards blue. I mean, I'm going to vote blue for Connecticut, but like, even if I don't vote, the same outcome is going to happen. Like, no matter what I do, I can't physically change Connecticut's place in the presidential election, even if I wanted to or didn't want to. There's no purpose other than the local elections. And I think the majority of my generation and the younger generations share that feeling, because no matter what we do, nothing's going to change.
I think that's a big problem with the attitude there again, because if you think that and friends think that, and then friends think that, and then and pretty soon you're up to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people, 100, 1,000 people. And eventually, yes, it will become a voting block, right? And you can create change. And it does. It's one of my big pet peeves is, you know, you don't get to complain about the system if you're not involved in the system. You know, I always make a joke that I'm never going to win the lottery because I never play the lottery. But again, people say, well, I'm never going to win, so I'll never buy a ticket. And it's well, you know, that's the best way never ever to win and never ever to have influence. You know, participate in the process, you know, get woke, get somebody else to go with you. You know, it is, I think, and it is something that, you know, people get convinced of because, first of all, the only coverage you see is national coverage, right? But local is equally as important, if not more important, to vote. You know, school board elections and, you know, that sort of thing, the state representatives, people who control, you know, any of your state tax stuff that happens or your education funding and things like that. You know, so you might think, oh, well, you know, Connecticut's going to go where Connecticut always goes. But I mean, in my lifetime, I'm from Colorado, used to be the deepest red state, and now it's not. And you know why it's not? It's because more younger people have started to pay attention and started to vote. And oh yeah, student loans also, right? Those things that directly affect you are getting made at the local level in many, many cases. Anyway, and Colorado voters legalized marijuana. You know, just put that out there. Not that that's, you know. All right, I'm off the horse again.
You know, but this, and let me just say something, and I'm going to go. I have a committee meeting 1:30. I'd love to stay with you. but this is part of the debate, right? Stephen's shaking his head. My vote's not going to matter. I can't initiate change, even though Dr. Ludwig's trying to show how it can happen. And so, you know, political change doesn't happen overnight. It takes persistence. It sometimes takes voting for the same people over and over again before they win, trying to put forward the same policy several years before it passes. You know, but ultimately you all, the students, are going to be the leaders of the generation. So you need to be working on your skills of leadership and involvement now so that you can start to take the reins, because it can happen. Right, Charles?
Am I still muted? No, I'm not muted, right? I'm gonna say for me, with that question, all I really say is, and this is different from me because I'm Black, all I really say is, like, my people fought for that right to vote, you know. The thing is, to talk about what Dr. Ludwig said, like, I think it's very important to also stress where you're from, because in Buffalo, the local elections are very they're very rigged in a sense. Some people, the mayor that's been the mayor there for like majority of my life has the most money. He's not the best politician. And the reason he has the most money is because he kisses everybody's, I'm not gonna cuss, but he kisses everybody. He kisses the people who own Buffalo, who tend to be white. The people that own the Buffalo Bills or Sabres, people that own that city are the white people. So now, right now, Buffalo, he's gentrifying Buffalo right now. He's actually forcing the Black people out of Buffalo right now. And this is a Black mayor. And he didn't start off that way. He started off by helping us, by making affordable housing, by making all these other things. But as he's been there longer and longer and longer, he's getting the money in and everything like that. You see the change in him. You see the change in his politics. So as of right now, you know, us young people are trying to, he has another year, we're trying to get him out. But the biggest problem is he has the most money. You have the most money, you have the better campaign, and him bringing the white people back in, he has their vote. They're going to be majority in Buffalo. We're going to be in the outskirts. You know what I mean? I can send y'all the budget we have. He's out of $500 million that we have, he's giving half of that to the police. And if y'all seen in the summertime, the police pushed over an old man that was peacefully protesting. And he's giving the streets that are terrible, and Dr. Schaefer knows about those streets in Buffalo. He's giving that probably 1% of the money. He's giving education probably 10% of the money. And it's like, you know, it's a thing where for us in Buffalo, it's tiring, but because he has the money, because he has the resources, you know, we go out and vote. It's kind of a thing where he's gonna finesse his way every single time. And yes, it takes us to go out and vote. Yes. Every year that he has an election, he gets less and less votes. But it's like when you don't have somebody that has the money or doesn't have the resources, and they can't tell you what they're gonna do because they don't have the money to do that, people are like, well, hey, he said he gonna fix the streets. Hey, he said he gonna knock crime down because he has the money, he has a plan. So I think it's more of, you know, we have to have the resources in Buffalo too to help donate to these people and everything like that. And us young people in Buffalo, we poor, man. So like, I think it really matters where you are. So like, I agree with Stephen and I agree with Dr. Ludwig. I can't say that one's right or wrong. It's really in the middle. And as a Black man in America, I'm tired of voting because New York State, I vote because my people fought for that. That's why I vote. I'm doing my part. And I try to get my friends to come. And when we vote and they don't see the same, they see the same thing happening, they get tired. I'm just somebody who doesn't get tired. But then again, I'm the only one that's pursuing the master's right now. I'm the only one that's having these conversations. So I just want to say that when we had these conversations, you have to really be cognizant of where people are coming from, because depending on where you're from and depending on what you've grown up with and you've seen, that now the question is, how do I go to Buffalo and I help change that? How do I help get somebody some more money, some more funding? Now that's the question. Instead of voting, like, we got to get behind these people and help them get that money so they can show that they can do better. So I think it's just a conversation that has to keep happening, you know?
Yeah. Everyone, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm sorry to jump off and not even come anymore, but I got to go. I'm lucky to be on the Anti-Racism Coalition, Inequity Coalition. We have a meeting started. They need me there.
Awesome.
So
Thank you so much, Dr. Foreman. We really, really appreciate all of your insight and your time. So
Thank you very much. This was great. Keep it up. Keep the conversation going. Bye, everyone. Bye, friends.
thanks.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye, Kathy. Bye, everyone. Bye.
All right, guys. Well, we can go ahead and wrap it up because we were supposed to end at 1:30. Here's just some things that we have coming up, both with Bucks and with the Campus Democracy Project that Dr. Foreman heads up. But otherwise, unless there's any other questions or comments, things that you guys want to bring up, thank you so much for being here. We really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for organizing.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Great work, guys.
Bye.
Happy Friday.
Thank you. Bye.